When I met Chad, I actually lived in a co-ed sober living home, but we didn't start dating then. We became friends while we lived there, and started our recovery journey. And then a couple of years later, like when I first got sober, I was really broken, and I didn't feel like I could ever fall in love or even wanted to fall in love. I thought that was over for me. And through working the steps and working with a sponsor, I my eyes got opened to a whole new life. I broke soul ties, and I realized that I really did want to love. And so I ran into Chad, and he asked me to go to church with him, and we started going to church together. And it was a spirit-filled church, and I had never been to anywhere like that, like spirit-filled, like they were laying people out. And we continued to go to that church every week. And the pastor there, it was very prophetic, and he called us up to the front of the church, and he said, "What are you guys waiting for?" So the next day we went ring shopping, and the rest is history. He's such a man of God, and our relationship has been built around Jesus, and that's the only way that it works. He's selfless. He helps others, and he's got a really good story. So come on up, babe.
How y'all doing? My name is Chad, and I love Jesus. Man, that was some good worship, man. I was just want to get up here and start telling you about Jesus, but that's not how it works, right? We got to talk about drugs first. All right. My wife's so great. If you haven't heard her story, man, ladies, man, it's amazing, man. It's just amazing. And she's all prepared. She's got her notes. And she told me I should write some notes, but not much of a writer. So we're going to wing it. No. I just turned 50 a couple days ago. I don't feel 50, but I got a shingles vaccine today. Shingles? You can't get those till you're like 50, I think. But anyway, I don't feel 50, but I made it to 50. Oh, all right, sorry. That better? Okay. All right. Well, man, I the guys I work with, sometimes I'll tell them a little bit about my story, and they all seem to enjoy it. But they all, they can't believe that I used to do drugs, and but I did. Man, I was one of them rehab guys. Anybody a rehab person? Been in rehab once or twice, or 3 times, or 5 times, or 6, 7, 13. 13 for me. How many? Okay. Yeah, 13 for me. I like that because we're the only people that'll try to like compete to be the worst. Oh, I got 14. I did more drugs than you. Yeah, man, I always ended up in rehab, and it just got so bad out there, man. I needed a break. I thank God for rehabs. But before that, man, I grew up in Deer Park. My parents, I had two parents that stayed married till I was 18 or whatever. So, this thing doesn't matter. If you're a drug addict or alcoholic, it doesn't matter where you came from or how you grew up, man. It didn't care. And the first thing I did was cocaine when I was 14. And the way that happened is because my friend Keith said, "Hey man, you want to do some cocaine?" And I was like, "Yep." I mean, I think I said yep before the question was even done. And I don't even know where that came from. I didn't know what it was or what it would do, or I don't even think I'd seen it in a movie. Maybe I have, I don't know, but yeah, so that, I think about that now, it's just wild, man, just that's how it started. And man, I didn't know that, after looking back on that now and reflecting on that, and I don't know about y'all, man. I'm pretty sure though. The first time I got high, and I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you, it was almost spiritual. The feeling that it did for me, and I didn't know then, but I know now that the enemy, he'd only imitate God. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know back then that I was actually looking for God. I was. That's what I was looking for the whole time, and I had no idea. And I found drugs, and it seemed to fit what was missing. But the only thing about that is it's not real. It's fake. It's counterfeit. It doesn't last. And the things that it cost, just the price you have to pay to keep doing that just got so high. And but anyway, it started with cocaine. That didn't last very long. I told one of my friends. He told his friend told his mom called my mom. Next thing I know, I'm having a family meeting, and it was horrible. I had one of them mothers that, we're having a family meeting. That's about you. And anyway, so I got in trouble, and I didn't really do anything for the next couple of years. I straightened up, and I was a pretty good student. And in high school, I started drinking a little bit more, but I started drinking a lot. And it was alcohol, but I didn't do any drugs until probably my senior year, and then cocaine showed back up. And I started doing that, and then I graduated, and within a year of I graduated in 92, and within a year of graduating, I was a full-blown crackhead. I mean, full-blown, hanging out at 3rd Ward, Texas, Scott Street, crackhead. And stealing your mama's car, your mama's purse, all that. Yeah. more than I want to. I hung out down there for about, I don't know how long. Yeah, man, so I found myself down there, and that's a whole new world, and, all my friends are going to college, and here I am, blowing a cigarette, in the hood, and stealing my mama's car and her TVs, and my poor mother was sleeping with her purse underneath her pillowcase. I even figured out how to get that out of there. You know what I mean? And, has anybody gone to the store for bread for like 3 days? Anybody, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, well, only we do that, right? I need to go to the store, get some bread. 3 days. I'll come back with some bread too. 3 days later. It was a long line. So anyway, man, it was, in the beginning it was fun. And then, you start getting arrested, and probations and treatment centers. And then, I got married and started having some kids. And next thing you know, I'm still going to treatment. And I y'all got kids. You got to explain to your kids that daddy's going off to get better again, And you mean it too, man. You mean it every time, man. And then you come out, or I come out, and I'd come out, and I do good for a while, and I thank God for treatment centers, and thank God for 12-step programs, because it kept me alive long enough to find Jesus. I mean, for real. But man, so I'll just tell a few stories, and then we'll go from there. My same buddy Keith, we was doing cocaine, and this was probably quite a few years later, and this was so old, man. This was back when they had VCRs, man. If you don't know what those are, if you don't know, ask somebody. And that's just the only way you should be able to watch movies. But we had a guy that he was kind of like he was a drug dealer, but he'd like, if you had something, he'd hold it for you until you had the money, and then, he'd do that deal. So I called him up, and, hey, man, his name was Hector. And he had some good cocaine. And I said, hey, man, I got this VCR, man, and can I get a 20, He said, sure. And I said, all right. I was all excited and everything. And then I realized we didn't have a car. And he's about 7 or 8 miles away. And I'm like, man, what are we going to do? It's starting to get dark, too. And then I realized my buddy has a dirt bike, a motorcycle. But if you know anything about dirt bikes, they don't have headlights on them or license plates or anything like that. But I'm willing. I volunteered. I said, I'll go. And, man, I got a bungee cord, and I strapped that VCR on the back of that motorcycle. And we lived right next to each other, me and Keith, and our parents lived right next to each other. And there was a big field behind our backyard, and we had a gate back there. My dad had put back there. So I rode that motorcycle through, with that VCR strap back there. I rode it through the backyard, through the gate, through the field, to Beltway 8, down the feeder. I'm at the lights with all these cars, man. Just this dope fiend with this VCR in the back, man. I'm just, going down the feeder to 225 on the feeder 225 all the way down. It was over there by the tunnel, And I made it. I finally made it, man. All these crazy looks, hoping to God I didn't see a cop, right? And I didn't. And I got all the way to Hector's, man, and I pulled down his driveway in the back of his house, and Hector's coming out. He heard the motorcycle, and he's coming out of the back of the house at about that time, and I pull up, and I get off the motorcycle, and when I get off, I look down, there's no VCR. Man, I swear. Hey, I looked at him, he looked at me, I looked down that motorcycle, and I looked at him, and I go, how much? I swear. He said, how much you want? I said, man, about 8 ball, good, and a ride home. So Keith was a little upset, but not too long. He got the motorcycle back, or his dad went and got it. But oh, yeah, thank you for asking. I always forget that part of the story. Guess where it was? In my backyard. I didn't get 10 feet with that thing, man. I'm glad you asked that. I always forget to tell that. That's funny. Yeah, I got about 10 feet, and that thing never looked back the whole time. I'm just focused on the mission at hand, right? So I may not look like a dope fiend, but I promise you, that was a long time ago. And I did that with a couple people's cars too. It was insane. Anyway, so that was early on, man. That was early on, and stuff like that continued to happen. And I continued to get in trouble, and I'd go to rehab, and I'd have some periods of sobriety, man, and I'd do good for a little bit. And when you're in your 20s, especially, man, you kind of bounce. You know what I mean? It's kind of easy to, I don't know. I got used to losing everything, man. I could just get everything back real quick. I worked in the plants, I get a plant job, and make a couple of them checks, and I got a brand new apartment, new car, new girl, new, whatever, and new pet, and then, and then just rip the rug out from under everybody, and lose it all again. And that kept happening. And then, then I'm now in my late 30s, and then I've got my 40s, and I ain't bouncing so good no more. Now I got a little bit of a record. Now they not letting me go back in them plants. And it got, man, it just started getting, it was just hopeless, really. It started getting hopeless. And so this last time using, I finally, somehow, after all those years of smoking crack, I was like 37, and somehow I found meth at the age of 37. I don't know where. I'm sure it was around the whole time, but I found it at 37. And when I did that, I was like, well, what have I been doing this other stuff, man? This is the stuff right here, man. I got a little bit of that, and 3 days later, I still had some of that. I'm over here blowing $700 a night on this other stuff. And I was about 2011, 2012, somewhere around there, and I found meth, and that's a whole new monster. But crack was over. I forgot about that. Ain't never done that since, and it was meth. And meth is weird, man. It's kind of like a time machine, It's like I started doing it, and next thing I know, it's like 5 years later, and everything's gone. Everybody's gone. And but it seemed like I just did it, Anyway, I back in '94 is when I picked up my first possession felony and was on probation, and somehow I managed not to get a felony that whole until I was like 38 in meth, and I got pulled over with that, and I just forgot I had it in my pocket. Your mind's, not all there. I just didn't even know I had it. And so I got another felony. And so they offered me probation, and I took it. Well, they said, you can go home today if you want probation. I said, sure. But I'm addicted to meth, so probation's probably not going to work out very good. And, of course, it didn't. I started to fail. I was just, every time I'd go in, I'd fail one, and he'd ask me, are you going to be able to pass this? I'm like, nope. He goes, you're not? I go, no, man, I'm a drug addict. I I can't. And so we started talking about drug court and stuff, and he was going to set me up with that. And I think I got arrested. Yeah, I got arrested again when all that was going on, and I got charged with another possession, but somehow I got bonded out, and they dropped the charges, or they put it on somebody else or something. And anyway, so long story short, I was on the run for like 10 and a half months with an open warrant for probation. And I went to Oklahoma for a while and did find a construction job there for a little bit. And my plan was to make enough money to get the belt, bond out of my thing, but of course that never happened. I ended up back here in Galveston. And I had burnt so many bridges and it had just run its course to where I just didn't have nothing. My mom wouldn't even let me stay at her place, and I don't blame her. And so anyway, I ended up down here at the Salvation Army, right down here in Galveston. Everything I owned in a little Kroger bag. No car, no job, no family. I had some boys, and the CPS had already came in and said that, put them in foster care. And they were about to get adopted, and I remember I was still, before I got to the Salvation Army, I remember I was using, and I was down in Dixon, and I was holding a sign, begging for change at the corner. And I remember that day because I was supposed to be in court that day. That was the day that they were going to take my rights away. But I knew even if I could have made it, even all messed up, man, if I could have just made it and begged them, hey man, I don't want to lose my kids, man. They try to help you, but I couldn't, man. I just couldn't put that needle down. And I'll never forget that, man. A little piece of me, man, just like, man, because when I was sober, man, I was a really good dad, when I was sober. And I was like, man, if that's the only thing I had left, and that really hit me hard. Anyway, it was a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks where I ended up, I didn't have nowhere to go, and somebody from NA actually, I called them and they said, well, you can't stay here, man, but I'll take you to the Salvation Army. And I said, all right, man, I didn't have no other options. And so I'm down here at the Salvation Army, and, you stay there at night, but you got to go in the morning, and then you go to that other, I think, Daily Bread, you go to Daily Bread, and here I am, man, sitting on the curb with the rest of the homeless people, man. I'm the homeless person. And we're all sharing coffee and smoking them nasty brown cigarettes. Oh my gosh, man, them things are bad. But I was smoking them. And anyway, when you're homeless in Galveston, some of y'all might have been there. You go to the hobo breakfast on Saturday morning. And thank God for the hobo breakfast. Yeah. And so we went down there, and I seen somebody I knew from Alcoholics Anonymous years ago, and he was down there, serving and praying for people and serving food. And he seen me and he said, "Hey, Chad." I said, "Hey, man, what's going on, Johnny?" He's like, "Man, how are you doing?" I said, "Man, not very good, He said, "Man, I know me." He said, "Man, can I pray for you?" And he started asking me questions about Jesus. And he said, "Man, people like me and you, man, we need, we got some spirits on us, you know what I mean? We got to have, Jesus got to be there, man, for us." And he said, "Can I pray for you?" I said, "Man, you bet, dude, anything, I don't know what else to do, And so he prayed for me, and I accepted that. Nothing huge happened that day, and I got his number, and I never called him. And but I never forgot that. And I don't know how many months it was, maybe another 2-3 months, and I'm back in Dickinson. I stayed at the Salvation Army for a couple of months. I ended up actually getting a job at Fishtails serving. I never waited tables before. I managed to clean up for like a month, but then I started using again and just couldn't go back. And I wound up back in Dickinson, and I was homeless, but I wasn't a very good homeless person. Like I needed to be inside at night. And And either there's these shelters or somebody's couch or somebody's floor. I'd always was able to find something like that, you know. But this one night it was gonna be a sidewalk night, and I called old Mama and begged her to let me come stay there. And I said, Mama, please come pick me up. I mean, please let me stay there. I'll be gone before the sun comes up, you know. She was worried about getting kicked out of her apartment, you know, if somebody saw me there. That's what she was worried about. So I said, please. I said, I'm about to have to sleep on this concrete. And she said, if you can get a ride over here, Chad, you can. Anyway, so I did. I found a ride and had my backpack and stuff. And this is 2016, August 9th. And remember, I still have that warrant, right? And it's been like 10 and a half months. And so I go over there to my mom's, and she makes me something to eat, you know, and she gives me a pillow and a blanket, and she feeds me, and she's talking to me, and she was telling me about one of my kids she was took shopping that day, and how he was worried about me, and he was telling her that, you know, she ought to turn me in because I was going to kill myself. I remember telling her, you're not going to do that, right? She's like, no. I said, okay. Anyway, I don't remember. I remember we was talking, and I fell asleep. I'd been up for days, you know. And the next thing I know, I get woke up with guns in my face, and, you know, it's the Galveston County Sheriff's Department, and freeze, and I'm like, oh man, where's my mom, you know? And they're like, your mom's not here, man. And I'm like, oh, Mom. And at first I was like, dang it, Mom. But then just a few seconds later, I was like, oh, thank God, you know. Because I was just tired. I needed to quit, and I couldn't quit. I couldn't stop, you know. And so I always say, you know, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes angels have guns and badges. Sometimes, you know. That day they for sure did. Because I ain't used or drank since, you know. So I went to jail, you know, that wasn't nothing new. And I got this state jail felony, so we're going to see how that goes. You know, most they're going to do is give me 2 years, and they're not going to do that. Probably, you know, a year, 9 months, something, you know. But I'm in there, and I'm thinking, you know, I've already been to rehab so many times. I've been to, you know, this 12-step program and this 12-step. I've picked up so many Desire chips, and I couldn't even count them. And you know, and I'm reflecting on all that, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? Am I going to get out and just do that again until I use again, and then I was like, it was just like I got to have something's got to be different, man. I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And I started thinking about Johnny, and that day he prayed for me, and so I got me a Bible, and I got me a big book too, and I started reading that. I got me a 12 and 12, but I started reading that Bible too, and I started praying every morning. I started praying every night. And every time they came to church, you know, I'd go to that service, you know, and I was like, man, I ain't really tried Jesus. You know, I've tried everything but Jesus. You know, I'm gonna try this Jesus thing, and you know, Johnny said it worked for him. I believe him, man. I'm, you know, so I started going to them services, and man, every time I went to one of them services, I would just be in the back with just tears running down my face. And I wasn't sad or nothing, man. I was like, I didn't know what was happening to me. But, man, Jesus was just wrecking me, man. He was just moving on me. And that happened every time. And, man, so I kept reading the Bible, and you know, I'm thinking and I'm reading. And, man, I've never been baptized. So I knew when I got out, that I needed to find a sponsor and work the steps again, and 2, I wanted to get baptized and start going to church. And so, anyway, going to court and this, that, and the other, it turned into 6 months state jail, which turned into 90. You know the deal. It turned into 90 days Galveston, you know, county time. So it was 90 days, and I was a trustee, and I'm going to church every service, and every time they have an AA meeting, I'm going, and every time it's the same. God's just smoking me, man. Something's happening, and I don't know what's happening, but I think it's good. I think it's good. Anyway, I get out, and of course, you know, the only one to come see me was Mama. You know, a couple times, and she probably had $20 and put 10 of that on my books. You know what I mean? And she came and picked me up. And she said, well, where do you want to go? You can't stay with me. And I go, well, take me to the AA club, you know. Take me to a meeting, you know. I don't know what to do. And so I pull up to that meeting, and it's the Bay Area Club over there in League City. And I walk around the back to the back there, and there's only one person out there. I guess the meeting started. There's only one person out there eating a sandwich, and guess who it was? Yeah. She knows. She's heard this before. It was Johnny. And I said, Johnny. He said, Chad. He said, man, where you been, man? I said, I've been in jail, man. He said, what's going on? I said, man, two things. I need a sponsor. He said, okay. And I want to get baptized. He said, okay, when do you want to do it? I go, I don't know. He goes, how about this Saturday? I said, okay. He said, man, so I found a little sober living house there in Dickinson. He said, I'm going to pick you up Saturday morning. We're going to go to the hobo breakfast. He said, but this time you ain't going to be eating, you're going to be serving. And, yeah, praise God. And then after we do that, we're going to go right down there into the water, and we're going to baptize you right there in the Gulf of Mexico. I said, all right, man, let's go. And so he did, and he picked me up that morning, and we went and served, and we went. And I got baptized, and I don't know, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what it's supposed to be like. So I go out there, and they dunked me, and they might have held me out a little bit longer. Yeah, right. And then we came back on shore, and there was baptized. Some more people were getting baptized out there, and there was this old man from the church. He said, well, how do you feel, Chad? And I go, the truth was I didn't really feel any different. I just felt wet, kind of cold. It was November. It was biker rally weekend, by the way. Yeah. I'm kind of wet and kind of cold. And he goes, and he said, well, the old Chad's out there floating around the Gulf of Mexico right now. The new Chad's standing on the shore. He said, you're a new creature. You're a new creation. And I said, yeah, man. Okay. All right. So I started thinking about that, and I worked the steps many times. I took many third step prayers. I've got down on my knees with another man and said that prayer many times. And this is the first time I got baptized, and I started thinking, and especially with Johnny, man, that dude picked me up every day. He took me to a meeting, and every Sunday morning, Sunday night for church, Wednesday night for church. Every time the church doors were open, I was there. And them people just loved me, man. God dang, they loved me they loved the hell out of me. And they just did, man. Dude, a good church loves some drug addicts, boy. They do, man. I'll tell you, and them people were so kind to me, and man, thank God for Johnny. And where was I? Where was I? I lost my train of thought. I remember. So I'm started thinking. So I'm thinking about getting baptized, and I'm starting thinking, okay, so this baptized thing is kind of, it's way more important than a third step prayer, but it's kind of like a third step prayer. You're making a decision, and then after you do this, you're going to get up, and start doing something different. Well, I never knew that. I never did that. So. It's not about taking a third step prayer. It's about what you do when you get off your knees, It's not about just getting baptized. It's about what you do when you come up out of the water. You know what I mean? Because if not, you just got wet, So, man, thank God, God surrounded, I'd say, I never would have thought to surround myself with all these people, but God surrounded all these men of God and women of God around me because I didn't know nothing. And I just started doing what they're doing. We're going to church. All right, we're going to church. All right, we're worshiping. We raise our hands here. Okay, we're raising our hands here. I wouldn't raise your hands, guy. But, man, the pastor over there, she said, you know what, why we raise our hands? This is how she explained it. She said, this is the universal sign of surrender. I can relate to that, man, because I surrender, man. I give up. And so when she said that, I was like, both hands went up, And I used to go to lots of concerts, too. I can do this for I couldn't do it for God, you know what I mean? So I just started worshiping, man. I love worship now, man. My wife hears me singing. I'll be all loud. out of key and everything. Just, man, I love it. I love it, man. It's just so good, man. It's so good. And so I started just listening to these people, man. Some of them were former drug addicts, some of them weren't, but I just started hanging with them and doing what they were doing, and just following Jesus, man. And man, I'll tell you what, I didn't miss a meeting either. And for that first year, man, I was in a meeting every day. Johnny would come pick me up from that little sober living house, and then I went to another sober living house where I met Brandy. And I should tell you all a little story about that. Yeah, I tried to get with her when we was there, but she wasn't having it. Yeah, I tried. We were watching the movie. I said, "You can lay down with me if you want to." She's like, "No way, bro." I was like, "All right, man. I thought something wrong with me." But man, it happened just the way it was supposed to happen, man. It did. It really did. God has just blessed me. I'll tell you what. I was when we were worshiping, and she was talking about people praying for people. Man, I'm telling you, that's where it started for me. Letting somebody pray over me and pray for me. So if anybody ever asks you to do that, man, and you're tired of living the way you're living, and you've tried everything else, man, try that. Yeah, and just give into it, and just because God loves you, man. I'm telling you. So it's been almost 8 years now. August to be 8 years. And I'm just bragging on God right now. Johnny told me, man, when you get up there to tell your story, your testimony, if you just brag on God, you can't go wrong. Right? I have no idea what time it is or how much time I have left. It's awesome. That's good. I'm about to pass out. Oh yeah, 8 years. So, man, just where God has taken me in 8 years, it's just amazing, man. I'm telling y'all, I just told y'all, Salvation Army, sitting on the curb, smoking brown cigarettes, till me and my wife just bought a house. You know what I'm saying? Like we bought a house, like a new house. And man, I got credit cards from. I ain't had no credit card before. And I got a credit score, like a good one. Mind you, when I first sobered up, it was like 420 or something. And I was like, credit card? I didn't have a credit card until I got sober. Only because of my wife. She's man, I'm telling you, she's the note taker. Thank God, because I'm just woo. Let's use this card, woo. Which card? It just keeps on, man, just never ending. No, I don't use them unless I call her first. Can I use this card? No. She'll tell me what card to use, which is perfectly fine with me because yeah. But anyway, man, those, two of them kids, two of them boys of mine, did get adopted by that foster family. But praise God, I mean, even in the first year that their adopted family that adopted them, they reached out to me. They knew I was doing good. They started letting me see it, and they'd meet me at the mall, Baybrook Mall, like once a year, twice a year. And I got to see the boys grow up, and at Christmas time and their birthdays, and now, well, one of them, he's been living with me for the last 4 years. Yeah, he just turned 18, and when he was 14, they brought him over and said, "Hey, man, long story short, he don't want to be with us. He wants to be with you." And then it started out to be a couple of days, and that turned into a couple of weeks, and that turned into 4 years, and he's still there. And I just talked to the other one. He's 17, and man, the other one, he's a junior in high school, or fixing to be a senior next year. But he also goes to college at the mainland, so he'll graduate with dual credit. He'll get a associate degree and a diploma, straight A student, just doing great. I just talked to him today, and he comes over sometimes for the weekend. And man, we got a little girl. My little girl, she's back there, and man, I'm telling you about what a mother. She's such a good mother to her, and thank God for that. And she loves her so much, and she's just great. And I mean, God has just blessed me, and I'm telling you. and yeah, when we started dating, it was like, hey, you want to go to church with me? Because I didn't know anything. God blessed me with her. I wasn't looking for anything because I still was like, man, my picker went out a long time ago. You know what I mean? And God just blessed us, man. He's just blessing us so much. And just 8 years, I mean, I got a great job, and so does she. And we don't even fight. We just don't, you know what I mean? What's for what, you know what I mean? A couple times, maybe. Not really. And we had a beautiful house and 2 new cars. And, man, God is just restoring all that stuff. It ain't about all that stuff, but that stuff's nice. You know what I mean? And the thing is, we talked about it, man, because we were worried about, what happens, what if everything crumbles and everybody loses everything? And she's like, well, we've been there before, so it's like, we lose everything. We've been there. We know how to. It ain't no big deal. It ain't like we've been there. And anyway, man, I just want to let you know, if you're in here, I don't know who this is for. Maybe it's for a few people, but you're stronger than you think you are. You are, and you're not. It's not too late, and you haven't done too much, and you haven't went down too far. God will touch you and bring you out of that, whatever you're in, and He loves you, and He wants the best for you. I promise you He does. I just can't believe what He's done for me, and He'll do it for you. That's all I got.